Once upon a time, I never imagined I would find myself in a scenario like this. In the past, I would listen to tales like this and let out a sigh of disbelief. But now I understand. It unfolds gradually. It slips in, gradually, almost imperceptibly, until a single moment transforms into an indelible memory. For 6 years, I have shared my life with a wonderful man, not an impassioned soul, not one to be wildly attentive, but rather steady, loyal, and responsible. That sort of wonderful, the kind that remains oblivious, that fails to see when you don a fresh outfit or when silence envelops you for days on end. For a long while, I told myself that was sufficient. From his first marriage, he was blessed with a son, Taylor. When I joined my life with his father's, Tyler was just 15 years old, lofty, reserved, remote. Just another young soul navigating the twists and turns of adolescence. Our bond was never particularly strong. We never found ourselves in conflict. Yet there lingered a courteous space between us. I allowed things to unfold naturally. I thought that as he grew older, we might find a way to bond a bit more naturally. At this moment, he stands at the age of 21. Upon completing his junior year in college, he returned to spend the summer with us. At first, it was an odd sensation to have a grown man in the house, a figure I had observed navigating the tumultuous waters of adolescence, whose voice once faltered mid-sentence, now returned transformed broader shoulders, a resonant voice, and an air of newfound assurance. At first, my gaze didn't linger on him in that manner, but then I began to perceive the shift. Indeed, it is a sentiment that resonates with all. On a Thursday morning, it was simply the two of us at home. My husband had already departed for his day at work. In the heart of the kitchen, I found myself slicing vibrant fruit, preparing a morning feast. Clad in a delicate tank top and those cozy cotton shorts I typically save for slumber, I had yet to don a bra. I found myself lost in thought, oblivious to it all. It's simply my go-to attire for those cozy moments at home. I sensed his presence as he stepped in behind me. I hesitated to turn around immediately. With a sleepy murmur, he greeted the morning, still caught in the haze of slumber, a power drill clutched in one hand. He mentioned that he would finally attend to the cabinet door in the bathroom, which had been dangling precariously for weeks. With a warm smile, I expressed my gratitude to him. Just an ordinary moment, simply light conversation. Yet, in that moment, he hesitated. I sensed it before it came into view. The heavy hush enveloped the surroundings, the kind that captures your attention when someone gazes at you just a moment too long. With an intensity that lingers in the air, I shifted my position just a bit, spotted him in the gleaming surface of the microwave door. His gaze lingered on my chest. Not a fleeting glance, nor a hint of embarrassment. Gazing intently. As if he had lost all sense of self. In a moment of inexplicable impulse, I found myself rooted to the spot. Perhaps a sense of wonder. Perhaps there is another possibility. Yet, I allowed him to gaze. I took my time to gather my thoughts, refraining from reprimanding him. I continued to slice the melon, feigning ignorance to the unfolding scene around me. Then arose the sound of plastic clattering against tile. He let the drill slip from his grasp. It took us by surprise, leaving us both in a state of shock. I spun around, and he hurriedly reached for it, his cheeks flushed and his eyes wide with surprise. He uttered an apology, a slip of the hand, a moment lost. He gave a slight nod. Continuing the charade. Yet, the atmosphere had shifted. He hurried out of the kitchen, murmuring something about needing to fetch a screwdriver. There I was, standing solitary, a piece of cantaloupe cradled in my hand. A thrill surged through me, igniting a sensation I hadn't experienced in years. It was more than merely the discomfort of the situation. It was the way it stirred my very essence. It was as if a light had been ignited within me, awakening a part that had remained dormant for ages. It slipped my mind entirely. though it weighs on my conscience. I found myself retreating to my room moments later, securing the door behind me. In that moment, my thoughts were a tangled web, and clarity seemed just out of reach. I recline on the bed, adorned in that very same top, my gaze fixed upon the ceiling above. My hands glided over my stomach instinctively, as if the mere act of touching could unravel the mystery of what had just transpired. It wasn't merely that he observed. It was the way he appeared. As if he desired me, not in a clumsy, bewildered, youthful manner, yet like a soul who understood his desires all too well. He loathed himself for them. That gaze lingered in my mind throughout the day. Each time a footstep echoed through the hallway, my gaze instinctively drifted toward the sound, curious if he would stroll past, curious if he would cast his gaze once more. The evening meal unfolded in a hush, a serene backdrop to the gathering. My husband shared a light-hearted quip about the joy of having the family reunited once more. I conjured a smile. Tyler hardly uttered a word. His gaze remained fixed on his plate, unwavering and intent. Yet, in that fleeting moment, I experienced it anew. I requested him to pass the salt, and as he extended it towards me, our fingers lightly grazed each other. That familiar surge. He cast a fleeting glance my way, just for a moment, yet it conveyed a depth beyond what mere words ever could. Once the meal had concluded, I lingered to tackle the task of washing the dishes. He stood in the doorway, his gaze fixed upon me. Even before I turned around, I could sense his presence lingering in the air. I remained silent. He did not either. Yet, within that profound stillness, something began to take shape. Inquiry. Longing. Endless potential. As the night deepened, I found myself nestled in bed beside my husband. His form was turned aside, softly drifting into the realm of dreams, a gentle snore escaping his lips. I gazed up at the ceiling, much like I had done before. This time, my curiosity was not piqued by the unfolding events. I found myself pondering what the next chapter might unfold. What does it signify when a woman observes the way a man gazes at her? When that man is meant to be out of reach, when you not only observe, but take pleasure in it. Once upon a time, I never imagined I would become that woman. Yet, here I stand. And thus, the tale had only just begun. The following morning, I took care to dress myself before descending the stairs. I was unwilling to gamble on experiencing another moment akin to that one in the kitchen. At least not by design. I convinced myself that I was embracing maturity and responsibility, that I was putting an end to it all. Yet, the reality is, I simply sought power. I wished to prevent it from occurring once more, unless I chose to permit it. On that sweltering day, the sun blazed down relentlessly. The heat makes it impossible to find the motivation to do anything indoors. My husband was set to be away all day on site. A client meeting that would stretch into the twilight hours. As the clock approached noon, I shared with Tyler the thought that we might take a dip in the pool before the sweltering heat set in. He paused for a brief moment, then gave a nod of agreement. I reassured myself that it was merely a fleeting encounter. Yet, I was fully aware that I had chosen my green bikini with intention. The one that holds on when damp and hangs just low enough to draw gazes. I lingered in anticipation, my gaze fixed on the sliding glass door, waiting for the moment I would catch sight of him before finally stepping outside. He had already plunged into the water, limbs extended gracefully over the rim of the water. As I strolled by, he remained silent, yet his gaze trailed my every movement. There was a quiet nuance to it, a whisper that brushed against my senses. His gaze enveloped me, a comforting embrace akin to the gentle warmth of a summer breeze. It was effortless to draw him into conversation, with a few reflections on college life. A tale about his roommates unfolded, and he began to unwind. He chuckled a bit more than usual, and I couldn't help but smile at the way he gazed at me. Not as a boy, but as one who was keenly aware of all my actions. Each motion, each fleeting gaze, at a certain moment, he graciously proposed to fetch some drinks. Nothing too weighty, only a pair of chilled seltzers from the fridge awaits. As he returned, he passed me the can, his fingers lingering against my, just a heartbeat longer than needed. My heart raced. It seemed that neither of us was putting on a facade any longer. Share your thoughts. Once upon a time, there was a place of learning and discovery, where young minds gathered to explore the wonders of knowledge. This realm, known as school, was filled with adventures waiting to unfold. Once upon a time, there was a world filled with melodies and rhythms, where every note told a tale of its own. In the summer, the suburbs stretch out like a vast, unchanging landscape, where time seems to slow down and the days blend into one another. The streets, once bustling with life, now lay quiet under the sweltering sun, with only the occasional rustle of leaves breaking the stillness. The hum of distant lawnmowers and the faint laughter of children playing seem like echoes from another world. As the monotony of the season settles in, each house stands as a silent sentinel, watching the long, lazy afternoons drift by, while the promise of adventure his legs reached out toward mine in the gentle embrace of the shallow end of the pool. I remained still as our feet found each other beneath the water's surface. A gentle connection formed. A silent exchange in the depths of the moment remained in that place. I shared a light-hearted quip about the perils of sunburn. He inquired whether I required sunscreen. I gave a nod before fully considering the implications. He glided silently behind me, dispensing lotion into his palms with a quiet precision. I swept my hair to one side, my heart racing with every passing moment. His hands moved with a deliberate grace, tracing a path from my shoulders down to the center of my back. The contact was reverent, yet it held on just a moment longer. There was a tenderness woven throughout. Concentrate. He was weaving a narrative with every stroke of the lotion on my skin. He was discovering the depths of my being. A shiver ran down my spine as I sensed his breath whispering against my neck. My skin tingled with anticipation. I shut my eyes for a fleeting moment, perhaps a heartbeat too long. He remained silent upon completing his task, recently embarked on a new journey. Yet the distance remains close. Later, I emerged from the pool, only to find my footing betrayed by a towel, sending me into an unexpected dance with gravity. As I pivoted to make my way back indoors, my foot caught on the edge of the concrete, sending me stumbling forward. It wasn't a complete tumble, merely a sharp jolt that sent me lurching ahead. He ensnared me, with one arm encircling my waist and the other clasping my wrist. His hold was firm, his form near. I gazed up at him, my breath coming in quick bursts. He held on tightly, refusing to release his grip just yet. I remained steadfast. It was the first moment we were near enough that his scent enveloped me, a subtle blend of fresh cologne intertwined with a hint of chlorine. He gazed down at me, his lips parting as if words were on the brink of escaping. Yet he chose not to. He offered his support, grounding me for a moment, then swiftly moved on. Within the confines of my bathroom, I slipped into a new outfit, the door securely locked behind me. I found it hard to confront the emotions stirring within me. The warmth enveloping me was more than just the sun's embrace. I lingered before the mirror, caught in a moment that stretched longer than I had intended. A towel envelops me, its fabric clinging as my wet hair cascades down my back, droplets tracing a path like tiny rivers. I gazed into the depths of my reflection and murmured softly, "What are you up to?" This was more than a mere infatuation. This was more than just playful banter. This was a matter I could no longer dismiss with a chuckle. By the time dinner arrived, I had woven a narrative in my mind that it would surely pass. It was merely a fleeting moment, a peculiar, electric afternoon that would never come again. I even sent a message to my husband, inquiring if he would like me to save him something to reheat later. Tyler strolled into the kitchen, his shirt absent, a towel draped around his neck, hair still glistening with moisture, and inquired if I required assistance with chopping vegetables. I nearly said no to him. I nearly suggested he head upstairs. Instead, I offered him the knife. We danced in a delicate rhythm, weaving through one another, in the kitchen as if it were a cherished tradition passed down through time. And perhaps we indeed had. Yet, not in this manner. He would always let his hand graze the small of my back as he walked by, a gentle touch that lingered in the air. His gaze never strayed from my eyes, yet I could feel the weight of his attention lingering on my lips between each pause in our conversation. He was caught in the act of gazing, more than once, and each time, his gaze remained steadfast. Once the meal was savored, I set off to tackle the dishes. He lingered by the counter, his gaze fixed on me. I sensed his presence, quiet yet unmistakable. I remarked on the stillness that had settled around us. He claimed it was anything but silent, that he could hear the rhythm of my heartbeat. That marked the first moment I chose silence. I was unsure of how to proceed. He slipped behind me once more, maintaining a distance that felt intimate yet untouched. His voice had taken on a deeper timbre now. He claimed he wasn't aiming to create anything unusual, that he was aware of my marriage, that he held me in high regard. Yet, he found himself unable to shake thoughts of me from his mind. I ought to have put an end to it right then. I ought to have reminded him of my true essence, his stepmother, the spouse of his father. Yet, I chose not to. Instead, I pivoted. I gazed upon him, truly gazed, and I beheld a man. Not a mere boy, not a son, a man who had been keeping his thoughts and feelings locked away, who had sought to maintain a barrier but ultimately succumbed. I remained silent. I dried my hands and strolled by him, the air thick with unspoken tales. As I moved, my shoulder gently grazed against his chest. Leisurely, deliberate, he chose not to follow. Yet, he found no reason to. The message resonated with clarity and strength. That night, sleep eluded me. As I reflected on the pool, the lotion, and the intimacy of the moment, a vivid tapestry of memories began to unfold. The transformation in his voice when he spoke to me in that manner was striking. I was fully aware of my actions. I was aware what I desired, and I sensed that this was merely the beginning of a much larger tale. Far from it. I vowed to myself that I would prevent it from unfolding. I had already traversed countless boundaries within the realm of my thoughts. Desiring him was one chapter in a larger tale. Allowing him to witness it was something entirely different. Yet, once that last step was taken, there was no turning back. There's no denying that it held significance. Yet, desire carries its own weight. It draws you in gently at first, until a single moment pulls everything else along with it. On that night, the house was enveloped in an unsettling silence. My husband sent a message, letting me know he'd be staying overnight for work. There was a hint of anticipation in the air as the dawn broke, promising a gathering that would unfold the next morning. I gazed at that message, lingering on it far longer than I ought to have. I had already grasped its significance. I had already grasped the depths of my decision. As I filled my glass with the rich, crimson liquid, a sense of anticipation washed over me. I convinced myself that I was merely unwinding. I had earned a peaceful evening. It was entirely unrelated to him. Yet, each sound echoing from the hallway sent my heart racing. Each creak of the stairs. Every motion above me. As I savored the last sips of my second glass, he made his entrance into the room. He had slipped into a cozy grey t-shirt and sweatpants, his hair still glistening from the recent shower. He gave me a nod, almost bashful in its nature, inquired if I desired companionship. I held my tongue, allowing only a nod to convey my thoughts. He reclined at the distant edge of the couch. In the beginning, our words were few. When I inquired about school, he responded with brief replies. It was evident he had no desire for trivial conversation. Neither was I. The quiet that enveloped us had transformed, no longer filled with discomfort. It was dense, brimming with potential, anticipating the perfect moment. I extended to him a glass of wine, a gesture steeped in warmth and camaraderie. He embraced it with unwavering resolve. As I passed it to him, our fingers grazed each other once more. Only that delicate fragment of flesh. That was all it required. He took a sip, his gaze fixed on me from above the rim of the glass. As I shifted my gaze toward him, my legs curled beneath me, and my heart raced with anticipation. He inquired whether joy resided within me, and so it was. Once upon a time, in a world filled with wonder, there existed a tale waiting to be told. Each moment held the promise of adventure, and every character was a thread woven into the fabric of an enchanting narrative. The air was thick with anticipation as the story unfolded, inviting all to listen closely and lose themselves in its magic. There is no introduction. Only one question lingers in the air between us, swirling like wisps of smoke. I hesitated before responding. I had no need to. It was written all over my face. I mentioned that I once was. I mentioned that I still was on occasion. Yet, it seemed to have transformed into a mere routine rather than a source of joy. There were days when I felt completely invisible. I found myself pondering whether anyone truly saw me these days. He remarked that he had observed. He claimed to have an eye for every detail. The manner in which I gently nibble on my lip while lost in thought. The manner in which I angle my head when I share a laugh, the way I gaze out the window after dinner, as if I'm on a quest for something elusive, something that remains just beyond my reach. Though tears did not fall, a weight pressed upon my chest. I inquired of him the reason behind his words to me. He spoke, for I held significance, because I held significance. He had been attempting to push it aside, striving to make the right choices. But the weight of it had become too much to bear any longer. He expressed a desire for me, not merely in a physical sense. He yearned to understand the sensation of being near me, truly intimate. He was indifferent to the wrongness of it all, that he had never desired anyone quite like this. I let him go. I placed my glass upon the table. He followed suit. Silence enveloped us. There was no necessity for that. When our lips met, it unfolded slowly, savoring each moment. It was not a matter of desperation. It unfolded at a leisurely pace. Consider with intention. It felt as though we had been anticipating this precise moment, and we were determined not to let anything spoil it. His hands found their way to my waist, while mine rested gently against his chest. I sensed the rhythm of his heartbeat beneath my palm, quick and calm and unwavering. When he came with a gentle ache in my neck, I leaned my head back and let my eyes flutter shut. His fingers danced beneath the hem of my shirt. Allow them. I yearned for them. I yearned for him to understand the depths of my emotions, the truths I had kept hidden, the feelings I had attempted to suppress each day. It has been a day since that fateful morning in the kitchen. In that moment, guilt was a distant whisper, absent from the scene. There's no room for doubt. At long last, two souls converge, shedding the charade of indifference they had long maintained. He murmured my name as if it were a cherished secret. He had kept it to himself, never uttering a word. I inhaled his essence in return. He caressed me as if every moment had been rehearsed, as if this encounter had played out in his mind 1,000 times before. I reached out to him in that very manner. When it finally happened, it unfolded with a calmness that was almost surreal. It was profound. Masterfully guided. His gaze lingered on my face throughout the entire encounter. His hands rested on my hips, leading me, anchoring me. I embraced him as if it were my destiny to do so. For the first time in years, I experienced a sense of being wanted that transcended mere necessity. It filled an emptiness. After that, silence enveloped us. He settled down next to me. His hand lay gently upon my stomach. The gentle whispers of the wind danced outside, caressing the classy barriers. The wine glass on the table lingered in silence, a solitary figure waiting for a tale to unfold. The atmosphere enveloped us, thick with the weight of unspoken words. I understood it transformed everything. I understood that nothing would return to the way it once was. Yet, I held no regrets, not for a moment. His fingers danced softly, weaving gentle patterns across my skin. I sensed his gaze upon me, not merely admiring me, but etching me into memory, as if the weight of the moment pressed upon him. He seemed to fear that this opportunity might slip away forever. I leaned in closer and spoke softly to him. "We ought not to have." He gave a thoughtful nod. Yet, his lips lingered on my shoulder, gentle and unhurried, and I sensed that he held no belief in that truth. Nor did I. For in the midst of all the silence, the tension, and the restraint, we had slipped into a realm neither of us could define. And now that we possessed it, we were determined not to let it slip away. I reassured myself that it was merely a single night, once upon a time, a blunder we would conceal beneath the surface. Yet, in that moment, with him enveloping me, I realized I was deceiving my own heart, for in the tapestry of life, a single moment weaves itself into countless threads. Not when it feels like that. The following morning, I found myself alone, without him by my side. I had a feeling I might. Yet when I finally opened my eyes, he had vanished. The sheets beside me held on to their warmth. A lingering embrace of comfort. A sense of relief washed over me. A part of me sensed a deep sense of abandonment. I sat up, wrapping the blanket snugly around me, pondering whether what I felt was shame or perhaps something altogether different. Downstairs, all appeared as it should, to ordinary. Tyler found himself in the kitchen, sipping his coffee as if the world around him had remained unchanged. He welcomed me with a soft, measured smile. The gentle souls were when they sought to protect something delicate. Words eluded me. I simply nodded, inhaled deeply, and moved past him with purpose. We left the events of the previous night unspoken, not in a voice that echoes. Yet, the unspoken words swirling around us hinted that the tale was far from finished. His gaze trailed after me with every step I took. His form always appeared to be slightly angled toward me, and I sensed he was merely biding his time for a cue. 3 days passed before that signal arrived. It all began with a fleeting moment. Once more, my husband found himself toiling away into the late hours. In the living room, Tyler and I found ourselves seated at a distance, each of us feigning indifference, all the while acutely aware of the other's presence. He inquired about my well-being. I expressed my uncertainty. He rose to his feet and approached me, taking my hand in his grasp, his gaze holding a promise that I was already his. The second night unfolded differently than the first. It was loud and reckless. It was a matter of great urgency, steeped in melancholy and a sense of desperation. It was as if the distance had honed every detail, making everything more vivid. I felt more consumed than cherished, and I allowed it to unfold. I longed for it to unfold. Yet, as it continued to unfold, the challenge of keeping things separate grew increasingly daunting. It transcended the physical realm. He began to send me messages when he was away from home. He expressed how he longed for the way my gaze would meet his, inquiring about my attire the moment I stepped out of the shower. He shared melodies that brought back memories of our time together. I ought to have urged him to cease. Yet, I never took that step. He began to lend a hand around the house more often, repairing items unprompted. There are moments in the kitchen when weariness creeps in, and I find myself glancing at the ingredients, feeling the weight of fatigue. It was understated, yet I perceived the change. He had stepped beyond the realm of mere play. He appeared for me in a manner my husband never did, and then he ventured into territory I never anticipated. He shared with me his reluctance to part ways as summer drew to a close. I was momentarily paralyzed when he uttered those words, for it was not a matter of inquiry. It was a command. A choice was made. He yearned to remain, not due to the institution of learning, not due to logistical reasons. Because of me. I brought to his mind the essence of our connection. What this might unravel. He was indifferent. He declared that he would prefer to obliterate the unreal than to turn his back on the genuine. On that fateful night, tears streamed down my face, not in his presence. Isolated. For within the depths of my being, I sensed the truth of his words. Once upon a time, the foundation of my marriage, once vibrant with love, began to crumble. It was crafted from the threads of habit, woven through the fabric of routine, and anchored in the weight of duty. What I shared with Tyler, no matter how unconventional or forbidden, awoke to the essence of existence. It resonated deeply. It enveloped me in a warmth that felt like returning home to myself after a long, cold absence. And yet, the guilt began to creep in, like a shadow lurking just out of sight. My gaze faltered, unable to meet my husband's eyes. Every time he came, as the dollar bill brushed against my cheek or someone inquired about my day, I could feel the weight of the untruth pressing heavily against my chest. He sensed that something was amiss. He inquired about my well-being. I shared with him that I was simply weary. That endeavor was quite taxing. The heat had been wearing me down. He accepted every excuse I presented, for his trust in me was unwavering. It began to fester within me, a growing discontent that I couldn't shake off. Tyler and I embraced our wild sigh. We ceased to tread lightly. We took action before the house fell silent. We captured fleeting moments in the laundry room, within the confines of the garage, in the dimly lit hallway, under the cloak of night. Each moment we found ourselves in solitude transformed into a chance adventure. Neither of us felt the urge to hold back. It had transcended mere pleasure. It was a tale of liberation from the existence I was feigning affection for, from the depths of a self I had long concealed under layers of concessions. He began to find his way into my bed during my husband's absences, not merely to graze my skin, but to embrace my essence. To inquire about matters that had gone unnoticed by others. He was curious about my favorite color, what filled me with the deepest fear, what danced through my mind when I was 17. He absorbed my answers as if they held great significance. And when he came, me, it truly felt as though he meant it. Yet, deep down, I understood that this moment was fleeting. The summer days were drawing to a close. Once more, the time had come for his classes to begin anew. He inquired about my true desires, the ones that lay deep within my heart. I found myself at a loss for words, for the reality was that I was in the dark. I desired him. This was my desire. Yet, I found myself questioning whether I possessed the fortitude to incinerate all else in order to safeguard it. He promised he would remain patient. I found that the decision could wait for another time. Yet, his voice trembled as he uttered those words. He endeavored to convey a sense of patience. He was not. One fateful night, my husband returned home earlier than usual. In the heart of the home, Tyler and I found ourselves in the kitchen. Not quite touching, yet near enough to raise eyebrows. As my husband stepped through the back door, he came to an abrupt halt, caught in a moment of surprise. Tyler met his gaze with a steady calmness. I smiled a bit too hastily and mentioned that we were merely tidying up. My husband remained silent, yet the gaze he cast upon me hinted at a deeper understanding, as if he had glimpsed something beyond the surface, a fissure in the very bedrock. In due time, he inquired whether anything was amiss. I firmly declined his request. That marked the final occasion I deceived him with unwavering composure. 2 days later, Tyler set off to return to his college apartment. Our farewell didn't unfold as we had hoped. A hug that lingered, stretching the moment into eternity. A glance that conveyed a depth beyond the reach of mere words. I observed him as he drove away from the vantage of the upstairs window. I held back my tears. I stood there in silence, one hand gripping the curtain tightly. He continues to send me messages. At times, I respond. At times, I find myself at a loss. The tale is far from finished. Not quite. It never is when it pierces this profoundly. I'm at a crossroads, unsure of the path ahead. I'm uncertain about the future of my marriage. Uncertainty lingers in the air as I ponder whether our paths will cross once more. Yet, I am aware of the emotions that stirred within me, and I'm certain it was genuine.